Hello, welcome back to the Sydney Stoma channel. My name's Chris. How are you? Hope you are doing really well. So in this video, we're going to talk about when people don't believe you. Certainly pre-diagnosis. So before you're diagnosed with a condition and you're telling people about it, you're telling people your symptoms, you're telling people what you're going through, be it friends, family, doctors, medical world, and people doubt you. That's what we're going to talk about, because it's damaging when people doubt you, because you know there's something wrong with you, and yet you can't get a diagnosis because nobody will believe you because of your symptoms, problems, or they're just not doing the right tests. And I want to talk about what that does to you as a person. So I'm going to share with you what it did to me as a person when people are disbelieving you. Now, some people might say it's not disbelief, it's just that they can't find what the actual problem is. Yeah, I'll agree with that. There is a case of that where people will know there's something wrong, but they just can't work out what it is. That's fine, but I want to talk about where people actually doubt what you're actually saying, because there are people out there that will doubt you pre-diagnosis. And I've had it. I've had it in my time of Crohn's disease. Before I was diagnosed with Crohn's, I was having lots of symptoms, lots of issues, and there were people that didn't believe me and would make comments about it was in my head, I was doing it to myself, which was impossible to make your body do what my body was doing to itself without there being a genuine reason for that. Now, if we think about my Crohn's disease, or if I think about my Crohn's disease, I wasn't diagnosed with Crohn's until I was into my mid-30s. Must have been about mid-30s. Now, I know I've suffered with Crohn's disease probably since I was a child, because I look back at things that happened in my childhood and there were signs. But back then they were tiny little signs that you probably wouldn't have really thought to investigate, certainly back in the 80s. And the biggest problem I've always had throughout my Crohn's, and this is what takes me back to childhood, was bowel control. Always had problems with bowel control. I could never understand why, if I needed to empty my bowels, needed to go for a poo, it had to be pretty quick. It was always difficult to try and hold it, to find a toilet. Some would come out, or all would come out. But certainly as a child, I'd say some would come out, and then I'd get to the toilet to be able to get rid of the rest, so to speak. So that was always there from a childhood. And I do remember from a childhood quite often having stomachache, quite a lot. So those signs were there as a child, the urgency and the stomach pains. But back then, it just probably wouldn't even been thought of to take your kid to get it looked at, because they're kind of few and far between. But I always had that urgency. So when I look back, I think, yeah, I probably have had Crohn's disease since I was a child. Sure of that. And then as the older I got, slowly, very, very slowly, the Crohn's disease started getting worse and worse. And it all came to a head in my 30s when it was just, I had no quality of life. But with all the symptoms as an adult, from a child moving up into kind of teens, into adulthood, certainly into the adulthood, it started to really become, those symptoms became worse. And I was having lots of stomach pains, lots of urgency, lots of sometimes just not being able to get to the toilet, having lots of accidents, having lots of bleeding from the rectum, lots of pain in the rectum, lots of pain over on the terminal ileum where the small intestine meets the large intestine, incredible amounts of pain, the fatigue, the having no energy, not gaining any weight, not putting on weight, constantly losing weight. All that was there, and that was visible for a lot of people to see. And a lot of people watched me lose weight. And a lot of people used to call me things that I don't like. A lot of people, even people very, very close to me back then, would call me skinny. And that used to bother me, being called skinny. You can call me generally anything you like. But skinny used to really irritate me. People say, oh, you're so skinny, aren't you? Or look how skinny you are. You need to eat more. You need to drink supplement things. What they called. There's certain powders that help you, put on weight, etc. Build up, I think, was one of them. You need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. No, we need to be finding out what's wrong with me is what needs to be happening. And that was the struggle. And I'd be going to the GP, and the GP would do blood tests, and the blood test would come back normal. Now, I'm one of these strange people that I've had so many blood tests, the amount of times it comes back normal when there's a lot going on. So I don't, blood tests are useful, granted, but they're not the be all and the end all. They don't show everything. And I'd so often be lying on a hospital bed in bits, and they said, but your blood tests are normal, Mr. Turner. Yeah, great, but just look at me. I'm not lying on this bed for the sake of it. And that was difficult. And you'd get medical, even people in the medical world, you know, disbelieve me. They were telling me there was nothing wrong with me. I was having people close to me telling me that there was nothing wrong with me. That I was doing it to myself. I was making myself do this, which was horrific. Absolutely horrific to have people close to you say things like it's in your head. On one occasion, I saw allegedly one of the best gastrosurgeons in the UK. I'm not going to name the person. He missed it, which was interesting and quite surprising that he missed the Crohn's disease and what was going on. Now, the surgeon I have now is an amazing surgeon. I call her an angel. I've got 3 angels in my life. My surgeon being one, and my wife being one, and my daughter being the other. They're my 3 angels in my life. They all have a huge impact on my life. My surgeon being one, when I told her the name of this gastrosurgeon that missed it, she had to remain very professional, but you could see it in her face. She was very surprised that this person had missed the fact that I had Crohn's disease. And she was one of the people that really got me on the road to recovery. Along with my wife, who never, ever disbelieved there was anything wrong with me. Never. Disbelieved that, she always believed that there was something wrong with me. She always supported me. And it must have been really tough for her without me having a diagnosis. Because again, when I'm in hospital and there's still no diagnosis, but I'm in hospital and she's trying to explain to people why I'm there, they can't grasp it because they haven't got something to attach it to. So it was always difficult for her as well. And I'm sure my wife Rachel's had negative comments from people as well. So it was very difficult for her, but she always 100% believed that there was something wrong with me. She lived with me, she saw me every day, she saw the decline. But she never doubted me, never. So, and I'm one of my angels, an amazing woman. 2 of my good friends, Lee and Darren, never doubted me either. So they were kind of like the closest people to me, and still are. Never doubted me, but lots of others did. Lots of other comments from lots of other people, even people that were close to me. People at work would make strange comments, and it became hurtful. Being called skinny, it just became hurtful. If you went up to someone and said, "My God, you're fat," that wouldn't be tolerated. You wouldn't be allowed to say that. That'd be offensive. But it seems all right to call people skinny. It's not all right. It affects people, and it was affecting me. I knew I was skinny. I didn't need constant selling, but I knew I was skinny because I was ill. But I just didn't know what that illness was. So what else does it do when people disbelieve you and make comments about it? It affects your mental health. My mental health was hugely affected. I really, really suffered with my mental health. That rapidly declined. And a decline in mental health with a decline in body are 2 very bad mixtures, because I thought I was going to die. I thought I was just going to get to the point where I'd be so ill and no one would know what's wrong with me, that I was going to die. So I always had that in my mind, that I thought I might die. And a couple of occasions came close. Again, if it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't be sat here. If it wasn't for Rachel, I wouldn't be sat here. I would have died if it wasn't for her on one occasion. That was when I had sepsis. My wife recognised that very, very quickly and called an ambulance, and I did. And she was even told, be prepared for the worst. But we got through that. So again, one of my angels kept me alive, as well as my surgeon has kept me alive. But mental health, let's go back to that. So the mental health side of things, that was rapidly decreasing mental health. I didn't feel like I had any worth. Just didn't feel that I added value to anybody's life. I felt like I was a burden to everybody. Because I hadn't had a diagnosis, I had all these things going on. I couldn't explain what it was. People were doubting it. So there were times when I was that down where I did contemplate suicide. Suicide was quite often in my thoughts about just ending it all, which was really tough. But that's what happens when people doubt you or don't believe you and you don't get the support that you need. Your mental health is clearly going to suffer. It will happen. But you have to believe, if you're going through this, if you're watching this video because you're going through it, you have to believe that things will get better. You have to believe that you will get a diagnosis. And once you get a diagnosis, all levels of care kick in. All manner of care will kick in. In the medical world, all sorts will kick into place for you. And also away from the medical world, friends, family, whatever, that have originally doubted you will all of a sudden start becoming back on board because you've now got a diagnosis. And there's part, I never swear on these videos, but when I had that diagnosis, I really wanted to tell people, see, I told you so, but I might have used a few choice words, is what I wanted to do, but I never did. Because just having that diagnosis was enough. So once you get diagnosis, everything happens for you. So if you are going through it, and that's kind of the point of this video, is for people that are going through that, is stick with it. You will get the result you need eventually. You will get a diagnosis. You will get the help and support that you need eventually. It took me years, and I mean years, but I got there. It was a struggle. It was difficult. The mental health was really bad. But I had good people around me in Rachel and my friends who helped get me through it. And it was very, very tough indeed. But you can get through it. So if you are watching this and you really feel like you're at your wit's end, keep pushing, keep going, keep moving forward, keep going back to the hospital. Just become an absolute pest with your doctor in the hospital, because that's what I had to do in the end. It was just, well, actually I ended up just constantly being in hospital because of how much my body was ruining itself, and those occasions were putting me in hospital. I was having to go into hospital, but if you're not constantly in hospital because of the conditions, just keep knocking on people's doors, keep asking for that help, just become a thorn in people's side, and you will get there eventually. It can be a long road, which I know and I understand. It was a very, very long road for me to get diagnosed. But you can get there. Keep pushing. If your mental health is suffering, please go and speak to your doctors, speak to people, speak to your friends. Don't hide mental health. It's nothing to be ashamed of. There's still a little bit of stigma these days around mental health, which I find annoying. But overall, there's a lot more support for mental health. Sometimes you might have to pay for it though, because certainly in the UK, the NHS is difficult to get mental health help with. But do it. But talk to your friends. Don't bottle it up. Don't hide things. Talk. I'll always answer any questions in the comments, and we can do that privately. If you message me, I'll give you a way of messaging me privately. That's what this channel is about. It's about helping, supporting people. So yeah, people will doubt you. People will question it, but keep going. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible when you know you are seriously unwell and people are disbelieving what you're saying. Like I said earlier, there's the medical world that know there's something wrong, but they can't work it out. There are some people in the medical world that would just accuse you of making it up. I've had that. I've been accused of being a drug addict by some medical professionals, an alcoholic, all sorts, abusing my body through other means. I've had lots of those comments from people in the medical world. It does go on. People will doubt you. Even when you've got a diagnosis, there's still the odd occasion where people will make snide remarks. But at least you've got a diagnosis and you'll have a medical team that's backing you up and supporting you. So yes, it's not nice. Been through it. And if you are going through it, I feel for you. And that's the point of this video, is to say, yeah, when people doubt you or don't believe you, you've got to keep going. You've got to keep pushing. You've got to keep knocking on doors. You've got to keep making noise. And if you're suffering with mental health, please talk to somebody. Please go and get some help, because like I said, I was having lots of suicidal thoughts, and I was probably bordering, getting towards the verge of planning it, of how I was going to do it. And that's not a good place to be. That's very dark indeed. But I got through that, and I want you to get through that if you are going through the same. So please keep knocking on doors. That's my advice. If you're not being believed or you're being doubted, I know I keep saying this, just keep turning up at the hospital, turning up at your GPs, keep going, and you will get there. I promise you will get there. There you go. If you've got anything, if any of that has evoked something in you that you want to a comment, please put a comment in. I do try and reply to every single comment that lands on my channel. Sometimes it might take me a few weeks to get to it, but I generally reply to 99.9% of comments that go on my channel. If you're new to the channel, or it's the first video you ever watched of mine and you liked it, please subscribe, it's free. I don't know why YouTube called it subscribe, because when you think of subscribe, you think of having to part with money. But it doesn't, it's free to subscribe on YouTube, so please subscribe. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up as well. Any comments, like I say, I'll do my best to reply to them. Take care, see you on the next one. Bye now.